Hey, it's Paul. Welcome back to B&B Talk. I need you to do me a favor. Once again, I need you to subscribe. I'm going to jump right into what happened on today's episode. The first thing we see Quinn, and she's basically telling Allie that all this can go away if she asks Liam to marry her. Now, she's already way ahead of everybody on this one. And then we see Liam and Wyatt. Now, Liam confronts his brother about, kissing Steffi, and Wyatt basically turns around and asks him if he's done with her. I mean, what are these two dogs, fighting over a bone? Wyatt then says to his brother, "You're like a golden retriever and you've got too many balls in your mouth and you're trying to hang on to all of them." And, obviously he's making a reference to him having the presidency of the company, to having the girl, to basically having everything and wanting more. At that point, Liam pulls out his own trick and he gives his brother a big hug and he goes, "Don't worry, there'll be somebody else for you." And he's letting him know that, it's over between him and Steffi and he's got his own plans. So it leaves Wyatt just with one more zinger. And he says, everybody thinks you're a really good guy, but I'm starting to think you're not really a good guy. And that's where we leave the two of them. We also see Steffi, and she tells Quinn, actually she pays her a bit of a compliment and says that her and Ivy are working well together. Now Quinn doesn't miss a trick. She uses this as an opportunity to say, it's Wyatt that brokered this, peace between the two of us. And then she goes on just shoveling it about how great her son is. And obviously she's pouring it on a little bit too thick for Steffi. So eventually Wyatt does show up, and he sort of busts his mom in a lie while talking him up. And him and Steffi actually get into it about the fact that he went and spoke to Liam. Now Steffi doesn't like that, but what Wyatt says is he's being absolutely upfront. He doesn't want his brother to think he's a sneak, and so he thought the best way was to tackle this head on. And Quinn keeps jumping in, and not only did she jump in, she says, "Oh, I think there might be wedding bells, for Liam and Ivy." And eventually, obviously Steffi doesn't want to hear this. She gets rid of her. And at that point, she kind of gets into it with Wyatt and tells him, basically, I don't want you bidding over me like I'm some used car, so don't ever, go to Liam and do this again. Wyatt's been put on notice and he knows, but he comes back and says, Liam and Ivy are inseparable. And he basically says, I don't think he would take you back anyways because of the way you hurt him. And he said, it's similar to the way Hope hurt me. Now we see Liam, and he tells Ivy in his own way, which is so hard for this guy to get to the point, that feelings are stirring between him and Steffi, and feelings that he had buried, and he's having a hard time holding them back. Now it doesn't mean he's going to leave Ivy, which is, what the heck is this guy saying? But needless to say, Ivy doesn't even have time for this. She gets right into it and tells him that she's going to be deported. And, they go back and forth over it because he says, I thought you had dual citizenship. And she said, I thought so too. And he said, well, why did you apply for a work permit? She said, because my company in Australia, I needed to do that. So there's a lot of confusion over this. But the bottom line, she says, I have to be out of the country within a week, and then I have to go file papers. So the next we see Quinn, and she's with Carter, and she stresses to him how much she needs Ivy to be there. And Carter tells, her something she already knows: marriage is the only option. So Quinn basically asks him if it can be done today. Now the last thing we see Ivy, and after, going back and forth with Liam over the semantics and the legalities, she comes out and says, I need to get married, and I need to get married now. And that's where we leave things off. So it's going to be very interesting next week to find out if there's going to be wedding bells or not. But it's Paul, and it's B&B Talk. I want to thank you for checking it out. Don't forget, follow us on social media. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.